Okay, everybody. Today we'll talk about the special senses: olfaction, which is smell; gustation, which is taste; and audition, which is sound, perception of sound. Okay. Another special sense we talked before is the visual. Right? We have already finished visual, so we'll talk about these three. Olfactory system processes olfaction, gustatory system processes gustation or taste, and auditory system processes hearing or sound. First, you know that all special senses have peripheral organ and central part. For example, if I ask you, the peripheral organs for your vision are what? Eyes, right? Peripheral organs receive the signal from outside of the body. So, right, the picture enters into the eye from outside, right? If I ask you, what is the peripheral organ for taste? Tongue. Make sense? We put the food on the tongue. Make sense? So that's the peripheral organ. First receives the signal from outside. If I ask you, what is the peripheral organ for smell? Nose. Make sense? And what are the peripheral organs for hearing or audition? Ears. Is it clear? So those are the peripheral organs. Peripheral organs have receptors, and receptors get the signal and send the signal to the brain. So that is the function of the peripheral organ. I am repeating again. Peripheral organ contains what? The receptors. Okay? And the receptors receive the signal and send the signal to the brain. Is it clear? Okay. Let me ask you, what are the receptors in your eye? You already know. Those are called rods and cones, photoreceptors, right? It's called photoreceptors. Is it clear? So, photoreceptors, rods and cones are the receptors in your eye. Similarly, you have receptors in the tongue, right? You have receptors in the ear, you have receptors in the nose. Okay? They receive the signal and send the signal towards the brain. Is it clear? Okay. So, first we'll talk about the olfaction. Olfaction is the smell, perception of smell. And the peripheral organ is the nose. Inside the nose, you have a nasal cavity, pretty big cavity, and this is one side of the nasal cavity. This is half. So this is the nasal cavity, and in the upper portion of the nasal cavity, near the ceiling of the nasal cavity, you have the epithelium, that is called olfactory epithelium. Why that part is called the olfactory epithelium, that lining? Because the receptors for smell, olfactory receptors, are located there. Okay? So now, when you smell something, what happens? Actually, they smell molecules. Those are actually molecules you don't see. Like if I put a cake in front of you, what happens? From that cake, smell molecules, olfactory molecules float in the air. Do you see that? You don't see, because they are so small, right? You don't see, but they are floating in the air. Make sense? And going inside the nasal cavity, right? And where you have the receptors? The upper part of the nasal cavity, where you have the olfactory epithelium. So olfactory epithelium has the receptors. Okay? And the smell molecules bind with the receptors. Smell molecules bind with the receptors. And when that happens, the signal gets out from the receptors and move towards the central nervous system, towards the brain. Okay? So that is what happens. Now, this is the olfactory epithelium under the microscope. If you see the olfactory epithelium, if you just take a small piece of epithelium from here and see under the microscope, you will see like this. In olfactory epithelium, you have 3 different types of cells. You can see by 3 different colors here. The most important cells are the receptor cells. These are olfactory receptor cells. They are like neurons, neuron-like cells. Make sense? See, they have dendrites and axon. So that's the olfactory receptor cell. So it is like a neuron, has a cell body. This is dendrite, and this is the axon. Okay? Nucleus. So that is the olfactory receptor cell. Other 2 types of cells are supporting cells and basal cells. So those are 3 types of cells in the olfactory epithelium. Now, the basal cells are very important. Why? Because basal cells are stem cells. And stem cells can do what? Produce new cells by mitosis, right? Stem cells can do what? Produce new cells by mitosis. Why you need to produce new cells? Cells die. You know, infection in the nose is common, right? Cold or other infections you often get, right? So inflammation occurs, rhinitis, allergy, right? Allergic reaction occurs. So all those can kill the cells. Make sense? And that is happening all the time. The cells are being destroyed in the nasal cavity. So therefore you need the stem cells, the basal cells, to quickly reproduce new cells. Make sense? Otherwise you won't smell after those cells die, right? The receptor cells die, you won't be able to smell. But that doesn't happen, right? Because new cells are being produced there. So that's why basal cells are very important. Okay? Now, I said that most important cells are the olfactory receptor cells because the receptors are present in these cells. Where the receptors are present? At the end of the dendrite. These are called cilia. So these are the receptors attached to the cilia. Okay. So now two different things. Remember, this whole thing is called what? Very good. Olfactory receptor cell. Is it clear? This is the olfactory receptor cell. But the receptors are tiny protein structures attached on the cilia. So this is cilia, and these tiny structures are the receptors. Okay? These are receptors.
You said there are tiny proteins.
Proteins, yes. Tiny proteins attached on the cilia of the dendrite. Is it clear? So this is dendrite. This is cell body and this is axon. It is a neuron basically. Is it clear? So see the olfactory receptor cell. Why this is called olfactory receptor cell? Because receptors are on the dendrite of these cells. Now the smell molecules enter into the nose. They are very small, you don't see them, but they can float in the air. Okay? So these smell molecules will bind with the receptors. Is it clear? Okay. So you have many different types of receptors, more than 350 different types of receptors in the epithelium, right? When you smell a rose flower, smell is different than mango, right? So you have receptors for different smell. Okay, so that's why you can separate different smells. Anyway, so the smell molecules bind with the receptors. That is, I have already mentioned here. Okay, and when that happens in the cell body, signal transduction takes place in this receptor cell. Now, very simple. What is signal transduction? Probably some of you have heard about it. It is just depolarization. Do you remember when we talked about neuromuscular junction? Sodium influx moves towards positive, that is depolarization, right? So that happens. So signal transduction occurs due to what? Depolarization of the cell. Due to influx of sodium. Sodium influx occurs, enters into the cell, sodium channels open, and that is signal transduction. That is very important. You will hear that a lot. Now, why you need that signal transduction in the receptor cell? Because if signal transduction doesn't occur, electrical signal will not move towards the brain. Make sense? The signal should go towards the brain, as I have mentioned, right? So, when that signal transduction or depolarization occurs, the signal travels. That's simple. Is it clear? Okay. So, everywhere you need signal transduction. In photoreceptors, you need signal transduction to send from the eye to the brain. Is it clear? In the nose, you need signal transduction to send the signal from nose to the brain. In the tongue, you need signal transduction to send from the tongue to the brain. Is it clear? So, signal transduction shoots the signal towards the brain. Okay? Okay, good. So now, you see here, cilia at the end of the dendrites, and when the signal molecule, the smell molecules bind, signal transduction occurs, and the signal starts to move towards the brain. So, who takes the signal out from the cell body? The axon, this one, right? Signal goes that way. And these axons are called olfactory nerve fibers. So very simple. The axons of olfactory receptor cells are called the olfactory nerve fibers. So this is one olfactory nerve fiber. And this olfactory nerve fiber passes through a bony plate. You all know that. You have seen that. This bony plate is called cribriform plate of ethmoid. Do you remember that? Cribriform plate, there are many tiny holes. The base of the floor of the cranial cavity, tiny holes. Cribriform plate of ethmoid. So from the nose, the cribriform plate is here. There are many tiny holes. This is the nose. So from the nose, the olfactory nerve fibers pass through the cribriform plate through the olfactory foramina. That's why those tiny holes are called olfactory foramina. Make sense? And on the cribriform plate, you have the structure that you have already seen when you did the dissection of the brain, the olfactory ball. How many of you remember olfactory ball? Remember that? Okay. So, olfactory bulb, look at this. Olfactory bulb, this is the cribriform plate. Olfactory bulb is just resting on the cribriform plate here. Okay? And olfactory nerve fibers pass through the cribriform plate and enter into the olfactory bulb in the brain. And this is the olfactory bulb. This is the cribriform plate. These are olfactory foramina, those tiny holes. Okay? Now, what happens inside the olfactory bulb? Inside the olfactory bulb, you have another type of neurons. Those are called mitral cells. Those are mitral cells. So, this is the mitral cell, and these are the dendrites of mitral cells, and this is the axon. Okay? Cell body. So, the axons of the olfactory receptor cell make synapses with the dendrites of the mitral cells. Mitral cell in the olfactory bulb. And this is called glomerulus. Glomerulus is singular, glomeruli is plural. Okay, so glomerulus. Make sense? So that's the synapse in the olfactory bulb. So mitral cells receive the signal. Mitral cell receives the signal, right? And then sends the signal through the axons towards the other brain structures. So the signal from the mitral cell travels, gets out through the axon. And many axons of the mitral cells bundle together to form the olfactory tract. You have already seen that. Olfactory tract. So olfactory tract is basically formed by the axons of mitral cells. They bundle together to form the olfactory tract. You see the picture in the top left. The axons of mitral cells bundle to form the olfactory tract. Is it clear? Okay, now let's quickly review. Okay, so if I ask you, the olfactory epithelium is located in which part of nasal cavity? Upper or lower or lateral? Upper part, right? The ceiling. Why that epithelium is called olfactory epithelium? Because it contains the receptor cells. Make sense? Receptor cells. Now, in the olfactory epithelium, if you see under the microscope, how many different types of cells you will be able to see? Three, right? Olfactory receptor cells. What is the name of stem cell? Basal cell. Very good. And supporting cells. Make sense? So those are three types of cells. You already know why you need basal cells. Those are stem cells, right? Because the cells are dying all the time inside the nose. If they are not replaced, you will not be able to smell. Is it clear? Okay. Now, olfactory receptor cell is a neuron type cell, right? That means it has a dendrite and axon. At the end of the dendrite, you have what? Cilia, soft hair-like structures like this. Make sense? And on the cilia, you have tiny protein structures. Those are called what? Receptors attached. Make sense? Why you need receptors? Because when the smell molecules float enter into the nose, right? Those smell molecules will bind with the receptors. And when that binding occurs, signal transduction takes place. Sodium gets in, depolarization occurs. Is it clear? And that is very important. Why? To shoot the signal right, towards the brain. Is it clear? Okay. Now, the signal goes from the cell body towards the brain through the axons of receptor cells, right? And those axons are called the olfactory nerve fibers. They pass through the cubiform plate of ethmoid. And in the cubiform plate, you have many what? Tiny holes. Those are called olfactory foramina because olfactory nerve fibers pass through the olfactory foramina and enter into the olfactory ball, which is just sitting on the cubiform plate. Is it clear? Now in the olfactory ball, you have another type of neurons. Those are called what? Mitral cells. Following? Right? Mitral cells. Receive the signal. Where the synapse occur, synapses, that is called the glomerulus. Is it clear? Make sense? Okay. Now, the axons of mitral cells bundle together to form the olfactory tract. Is it clear? And then olfactory tract goes towards the other brain structures. Okay. Now, which brain structures receive the signal from the olfactory tract? These are the structures, very important. Okay? Olfactory cortex. So some fibers take the signal to the olfactory cortex. Some take the signal to the hypothalamus. Some fibers take the signal to amygdala and the limbic system. Now, why olfactory tract takes the signal to different structures in the brain? Olfactory cortex will give you the perception of smell. What is that? If you smell something, immediately you can tell, right? This is banana, this is mango, right? That immediate perception is given by or processed in the olfactory cortex. Is it clear? When you smell something, you know what is it, right? You can tell. That immediate perception is given by the olfactory cortex. That's why signal needs to go there, right? Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is responsible for the memory, smell memory. Like you have smelled something long time ago. Now if you smell again, you can connect, right? Like if I tell you to go to movie theater, you smell popcorn, right? Like because that is the smell there. So that is the memory. Amygdala and limbic system are mainly responsible for emotion. You know, smell is very strongly connected to emotion, right? A small baby crying during sleep. If mom goes close to the baby, baby stops crying, right? Because baby smells mother's body. Make sense? So, smell, like you know, when you were small, you used to eat your mom's cooked food. Now, after many years, you don't eat that. Now, if you suddenly smell that, you get emotional, right? Yeah, I remember that, and you memorize that, you get emotional, right? Smell is very strongly connected to emotion, okay? So, amygdala, limbic system, those structures are giving that emotional response. Is it clear? So, that's why you need those different structures. Different structures process different functions. Okay, so that is the smell. Sometimes what can happen if any accident occurs, this cubiform plate can shake, move. So you see here, this is the cubiform plate, these are olfactory nerve fibers, right? Passing through the cubiform plate. So if that moves like this, that can crush the nerve fibers, destroy the nerve fibers. Make sense? Something hits suddenly, that can destroy the olfactory nerve fibers. In that case, what will happen? Smell signal will not go to the brain, right? So the person will lose the perception of smell, and that is called anosmia. No smell perception. Okay? No sense of smell. Yes?
People that have this, they're not able to taste very well either, are they?
Smell is very much related to taste, so the taste will be distorted. Yeah. You know, all of you know, right? When you get cold, your nose is blocked, you don't taste the food perfectly, right? So that is called flavor of the food. Taste and smell together gives what? The flavor of the food. So flavor, the term flavor is taste plus smell. That is the perfect, taste of the food. That is another chapter. Like a lot of factors are related to flavor of the food. When I give the same food, right, one in nicely decorated, way, and another is, not nicely presented. So which one you'll enjoy more? Nicely presented, right? If I put more smell, nice smell here, not here, you will enjoy this one more, right? If I put music with this one, no music with this one, which one you will enjoy? And you are listening to music, eating, right? So that is the flavor of the food. So there's many factors that are involved, okay? The texture of the food on the tongue. Cold food, warm food, which one is more tasty? Warm, right? If I present you cold, same food, cold, you won't enjoy it, right? If I warm it up, you enjoy, right? So you see temperature is also related to flavor. Enjoy. Make sense? Okay. Anyway, so that's the olfactory system. Now, gustatory system processes gustation or taste. So this is the taste system. The peripheral organ is the tongue. On the surface of the tongue, if you look carefully, you will see what? Many tiny structures. Those are called papilla. So you see from outside, you see the tongue and papilla. There are 4 different types of papilla. In the entire front part of the tongue, you have 2 different types of tiny dots or papilla, filiform and fungiform. So this is the tongue. In the front part of the tongue, you have 2 different types of papilla distributed like this. One type is called fungiform and another type is called filiform. Okay? In the back part, in the lateral sides of the tongue, you have ridges like this, foldings, and these are called foliate papillae. Foliate papillae. You see here, the back part, both sides. These are ridges. These are called foliate papillae. And then in the dorsal part or back part, you have mushroom-shaped larger papilla. They form inverted V in the back part of the tongue. These are called circumvallate. Circumvallate papilla. Okay? So those are 4 different types of papilla. on the tongue. Except this one, filiform, other three types of papilla are very important. Why? Because inside the papilla, those three types of papilla, you have taste buds. So if I write from large to small, tongue, on the surface of the tongue, you have different types of papilla. Now, if I open a papilla and see inside under the microscope, inside the papilla, you have taste buds. So now let's just take one papilla out, and this is inside the papilla. This is the taste bud. Taste bud. Now if I see inside the taste bud, I'll see slices, cells. These are the receptor cells. You know that receptor cells are very important. So these are the receptor cells. And receptor cells could be different types. So let me use different colors. This is another type. This is another type receptor cell. So the receptor cells could be different types. This is the nucleus inside the cell, and at the upper end of these cells you have hair like this. Okay. So this is the taste bud. It is like an orange, and if you peel the skin, open the taste bud, what you will see inside? Inside you have the slices, like the slices inside the orange, and those slices are the receptor cells. And you have different types of receptor cells. Why? Because some receptor cells are for sweet, some receptor cells are for sour, some receptor cells are for what other taste, like salty, right? So that's why you have different types of receptor cells. Okay, one type for sweet taste, another for sour, another for salty, another for umami. So different types of receptor cells.
How many different types of cells are there? Is there a specific amount?
Basic taste are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, right? Bitter, and what?
Spicy.
Yeah, spicy is like more burning type sensation. So these are called the basic tastes. Now by combining these, you can create more, right? Put a little bit salt, a little bit sour, a little bit sweet. You can mix them and can create other tastes. Okay, so inside the taste bud, you have the receptor cells. Receptor cells, different types. And now the last thing you already know when we talk about the olfactory. On the cilia, you have, in case of olfactory, the receptors. In this case, on the hair, you have the receptors. That's why these are called the receptor cells. On the hair, you have the receptors. Okay? And at the upper end of the taste bud, you see there is a tiny pore that is called taste pore. So these are very simple terms. Taste pore, the opening, tiny opening. Taste pore. Now you see what happens when you put food on the tongue. Secretion of saliva, right? If secretion doesn't occur, if the mouth is very dry, you don't taste the food, right? So secretion is important. Why? This is the surface of the tongue, and these are the food molecules. Okay, dry food molecules cannot go inside the taste bud. When salivary secretion occurs, that liquid food easily pour through the taste pore. Food molecules can easily enter into the taste bud through the opening here. That's why you need the liquid food. And then that food molecules bind with these receptors. Exactly same way, the smell molecules bind with the olfactory receptors, food molecules bind with the taste receptors. And then signal transduction occurs, sodium gets in, depolarization occurs, and signal is taken from these receptor cells to the brain. The very same way, signal transduction. Is it clear? Sodium influx, sodium gets in, depolarization occurs, signal shifts. Is it clear? Okay, good.
So that when you taste food, you taste it in the back of the mouth, not the front.
Taste receptors are everywhere in the mouth, okay?
Okay.
So in old books, textbooks, you'll see some textbooks, they have divided the tongue into like front part, back lateral, and this is sweet, this is sour, that is wrong, okay? That is wrong, that picture is wrong. So don't believe that recently that has been rejected. It's not right. Yeah. So in some old textbook you'll see that this is sweet part, this is sour part. That's not right. Okay, make sense? So the receptor cells are present inside the papilla, and there are different types of receptor cells are there. Okay. So now you already know how the signal starts to move towards the brain. You see here, this is a taste bud, and these are the slices, the receptor cells here. Okay. And when the food molecules bind with the receptors on the hair, signal gets out through the nerve fibers. See here. Now, three cranial nerves take the signal, taste signal to the brain. What are those three cranial nerves? Three cranial nerves are facial nerve, which is cranial nerve number 7, facial. Then you have glossopharyngeal. Glosso means what? Anybody? Glosso means what? Glosso means what? Tongue. Okay. So glossopharyngeal nerve from tongue and pharynx. That is the cranial nerve number 9. And the other one is the vagus. Vagus nerve is cranial nerve number 10. So these three nerves take the taste signal to the brain. Why three nerves? Because three nerves take the signal from three different areas. Okay? The facial nerve takes the signal from the front part of the tongue, glossopharyngeal from the back part of the tongue, and pharynx. In the pharynx, you also have taste receptors, few, but you have taste receptors. Okay, and then from the lower part of the pharynx, the vagus nerve. So that's why you have 3 different nerves. Just remember those 3 nerves. First, the signal, you see here, 3 nerves. So this is the front part of the tongue, the facial nerve, cranial nerve number 7, from the front part of the tongue, from the back part of the tongue and pharynx, the glossopharyngeal, number 9, and from the lower part, like epiglottis and other structures, you also have some taste receptors, the vagus nerve. Now, where the signal is taken first? The signal, the taste signal is taken to a structure in the medulla oblongata, and that structure is called solitary nucleus. You need to remember the name. The solitary nucleus in the medulla oblongata receives the taste signal from those nerves, and then the signal from solitary nucleus is given to the thalamus, or taken to the thalamus. Thalamus is called what? Anybody? Measure sensory relay station. Remember that? So almost all sensory signal is processed in the thalamus, should go. But you have seen when I talked about olfactory, from olfactory ball, it went to different structures, olfactory cortex, hypothalamus, amygdala, limbic system, not thalamus. So remember, this is important, that olfactory is different than other sensory because the signal is not relayed in the thalamus, going directly to the brain structures. Without relayed in the thalamus, olfactory is not relayed in the thalamus. Other sensory are relayed in the thalamus. Okay, so from the thalamus, the signal will go to the gustatory cortex in the insula of the brain. That will give you immediate perception of taste. Gustatory cortex will give you what? Immediate perception. Is it sweet or sour? Make sense? Is it sweet or sour? Or, bitter? That is given by or processed in the gustatory cortex. Signal will also go to the hypothalamus and limbic system. You already know memory and emotion. Remember that? We talked about these 2 structures too before. That will give the perceptional, that will process the memory, and limbic system will process the emotion. Your taste is also, related to memory and emotion. You all know, right? Taste, like if you eat something like many years ago and you liked it, then if you taste again the same food after many years, you can remember, right? You can connect that I ate this food before. Similarly, taste is related to emotion. Like I have mentioned, your mom used to cook food for you when you were small. Now after many years, if your mom again sends you food and you eat, right, you get like emotional. So smell, taste, those are very much related to memory and emotion. That's why the signal goes to not only to that cortex, taste cortex or smell cortex, but other structures too, like amygdala, limbic system, hypothalamus, because memory and emotion are related to that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the clinical condition. One I have mentioned, anosmia. Similarly, you have ageusia. Ageusia is absence of taste, no taste. I have already mentioned this one. Anosmia is what?
Absence of smell.
Yeah, absence of smell, right? A indicates absence. Remember, if it starts with A, that means what? Absent. Absence. So anosmia, absence of smell. Ageusia, absence of what? Taste. Geusia, taste. Phantogeusia. Phantosmia. Now you tell me. Phantom means what? Just say what do you mean by phantom?
Doesn't exist.
Not exist, like ghost. Have you heard ghost? Okay. So phantom is ghost. It's not existing, but you see it. So phantosmia means there is no smell, nobody else is smelling anything, but the person is smelling strongly something. Okay, no source of smell, but you are smelling. There's something wrong, right? So that is phantosmia. Phantogeusia, no food in your mouth, but you taste food, although there is no